Today I'm going to be listing canceled movies that I would have loved to see. This is not a ranking, it's just a list, and these are in no particular order. First up, we have Lego Batman 2. The reason this never happened is because the rights to the Lego properties went from Warner Brothers to Universal, and since Universal doesn't have the rights to make Batman movies, this movie was canceled. The director, Chris McKay, says the movie would have been a Super Friends movie, along with a crossover with a major franchise that could only happen in a Lego movie. This sounds really fun, but now that Universal has the rights to Lego, what are they doing with it? They're making a Lego biopic about Pharrell Williams. Now, while a Lego biopic is a different sort of idea, I really hope the rights go back to Warner Brothers and we finally get this. Phil Lord and Chris Miller's solo Star Wars movie. Fresh off the success of the Lego movie, Lucasfilm hired Phil Lord and Chris Miller to direct a Star Wars spin-off prequel about Han Solo. But, unfortunately, the studio didn't like the direction Lord and Miller were taking the film, saying it was too comedic. So despite the fact that they had been on the project for a few years, they were fired in 2017 and replaced with director Ron Howard. Now, while I enjoyed the finished film, I'm still curious about what Lord and Miller would have done with Han Solo and the Star Wars universe. With the Lego movie, Cloudy with Chance of Meatballs, and the Spider-Verse movies all having stories with sharp humor and a lot of emotion, this may have been one of the standout Star Wars projects. Speaking of canceled Star Wars projects, we have Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron. I'm a little mixed on this one because Patty Jenkins did a fantastic job with the first Wonder Woman movie, but she really dropped the ball with Wonder Woman 1984. So this movie may or may not have actually been good, but in the video that was revealed by Lucasfilm announcing this, Jenkins said she was very passionate about this project. Her father was a fighter pilot, and she essentially wanted to make a Star Wars version of Top Gun, which sounds really cool. The film was supposed to release in December 2023, but was eventually pulled from the calendar altogether because she was called back to direct Wonder Woman 3, but then that film was cancelled after the DCEU was scrapped, and Disney seems to want to focus on the Disney Plus shows and making more movies focusing on Rey, so it looks like this is a movie we may never see. Disney's Gigantic. This animated film was announced back in 2015 at D23, and it had the songwriters for Frozen attached to write songs for it. This was going to be Disney's take on Jack and the Beanstalk, and they even showed some rough demo footage of one of the songs at D23, but then the film was delayed from 2018 to 2019, then eventually scrapped altogether. But maybe one day Disney will go back and finish this film. Frozen was in development back when Walt Disney was still alive, and back then it was titled The Ice Queen, so it took literally decades for Frozen to come out, so who knows. Another canceled animated Disney project, Kingdom of the Sun. This is what eventually became The Emperor's New Groove, but Kingdom of the Sun was very different. It was going to be more like The Prince and the Pauper as opposed to a buddy comedy. It was going to be this big epic musical with Sting attached to write songs, and only two of the songs ended up in Emperor's New Groove, the Cusco song at the beginning and the song in the end credits. Yzma was originally going to be more vain as opposed to power hungry. It was going to get rid of the sun because she thinks it takes away her youth. There's a whole song about it on the soundtrack for Emperor's New Groove. For full details about what this movie was going to be and what led to it becoming very different, there's an unauthorized documentary you can watch for free on YouTube called The Sweatbox that details all the production troubles this movie went through. Again, maybe one day Disney will go back to the rejected ideas bin, and we'll finally get to see Kingdom of the Sun. Circle 7 Animation's Toy Story 3. Around 2006, Disney and Pixar got into a spat about how much money was divided amongst the two studios, so Disney decided to take all the Pixar movies they had the rights to and make their own sequels without Pixar's involvement, under a new division called Circle 7 Animation. The plot for this version of Toy Story 3 would have been Buzz Lightyear malfunctioning and shipping himself to Taiwan to be fixed after the toy company issues a massive recall. However, the other toys learn he's merely being replaced, not repaired, so they go on a journey to Taiwan to save him. This sounds like this would have been kind of a fun story, so though it's not very likely, maybe this will be the plot for Toy Story 5. Guillermo del Toro's The Haunted Mansion. In 2010 at SDCC, Del Toro made an unexpected appearance to announce that he was working on a movie based on The Haunted Mansion. This was big news because he had recently stepped away from directing The Hobbit. Ultimately, Disney instead decided to focus on the MCU as they had recently purchased Marvel, and while the film lay in development for years, the poor box office performance of The Lone Ranger, as well as Del Toro focusing on Pacific Rim, meant the project was more or less dead, no pun intended. Since Disney released a Haunted Mansion remake in 2023, and with Del Toro now focusing on making animated projects for Netflix, it's highly unlikely this project will ever be revived, which is a shame, because Del Toro is a modern-day master of horror, and I would have loved to see his vision for it. Phineas and Ferb. In 2011, Disney's website listed the Phineas and Ferb movies set for a theatrical release in 2013. Very little is known other than it would have been a hybrid of live action and animation. For unknown reasons, the project was shelved, and we instead got the television and Disney Plus movies Across the Second Dimension and Candace Against the Universe. However, with Phineas and Ferb getting at least 2 more seasons on Disney Plus sometime in the near future, we may end up seeing this finally come to fruition. And finally, for Disney, we have the cheapest Muppet movie ever made. Or I guess now it would be the cheapest Muppet movie never made. Disney actually released the logo for this at D23 back in 2009, and the idea was that the Muppets wanted to make this big epic film, but Gonzo blows the whole budget on the opening credits. So the movie and production value gradually get cheaper and cheaper as the film goes on, until the end of the film was just storyboards. But Disney decided to scrap this film in favor of the 2011 Muppets movie. And while that is my favorite of the Muppets movies, part of me still really, really wants to see this. So maybe one day. DreamWorks Bureau of Otherworldly Operations, or BOO. According to the DreamWorks Wiki, the plot goes that BOO is the super classified agency you've never heard of and certainly never seen. Dedicated to protecting humans from evil hauntings, the agents of BOO have a secret weapon. They are ghosts themselves. Newbie agents Jackson Moss and his oddball partner Watts uncover a plot to destroy BOO by the agency's most wanted hunter. They may use every trick in their arsenal to defeat his powerful ghost army and save Earth from a ghostly fate. DreamWorks actually had Seth Rogen attached as the voice of the lead role, and they even released a tie-in book with pictures of the characters on it. The film was set to be released in summer 2015, but was pulled to avoid competing with Pixar's Inside Out, and as of now is still no longer in active development. Another canceled DreamWorks project is Me and My Shadow. This is going to be a hybrid 2D and 3D animation film about the worlds of humans and shadows, and Josh Gad, Bill Hader, and Tom Hiddleston all joined the voice cast. Alice City was going to do music for it, but after poor test screenings where Jeffrey Katzenberg, the head of DreamWorks, apparently fell asleep, they decided not to spend $200 million to make the film, and decided to instead focus on Mr. Peabody and Sherman. And this is the same studio who is currently developing a third Boss Baby film, so... The last canceled DreamWorks movie on here is the animated adaptation of Brandon Sanderson's Alcatraz vs. the Evil Librarians. No information is known about this film. It was canceled because in 2013, DreamWorks decided not to renew the rights to the books. Personally, I think with the way the illustrations look, it would have been a very unique film for DreamWorks, and I loved what they did with Captain Underpants, so maybe one day we'll get this film as a TV show. Speaking of Brandon Sanderson film adaptations that were never made, Steelheart. This was supposed to be directed by Sean Levy, who directed projects such as Stranger Things, Free Guy, Real Steel, and a bunch of other really fantastic movies, but then Disney bought out Fox, and with Fox focusing more on X-Men projects and tying them into the MCU, along with the fact that the premise is essentially just a PG-13 version of the Amazon Prime show The Boys, it's very unlikely this film will happen, but I remain hopeful. Invader Dim. This is the canceled series finale movie to the TV show Invader Zim. No plot details are known about it because Nick canceled the show without a proper ending. The closest thing we have to this is Enter the Florpus movie on Netflix, but that's not a proper finale that wraps everything up. Dark Universe. I am one of the only people that enjoyed the 2017 Tom Cruise Mummy film. I have my issues with it, but I still had fun. This movie was supposed to be the kickoff to yet another cinematic universe, and they even released a cast photo of all the cast members that were supposed to be in all these different monster movies, sharing one cinematic universe, including Channing Tatum as Van Helsing, Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man, and Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster. But with extremely poor critical reception and poor box office returns on The Mummy, the whole idea was scrapped. Personally, I think this would have been kind of cool. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man sequels and spin-offs. Since Sony at the time didn't want to share Spider-Man with the MCU, they instead set out to make their own cinematic universe. Andrew Garfield was supposed to get 4 Spider-Man movies, there was going to be a Sinister Six spin-off movie, a Venom movie that was very different than the one we got, and a Silver Sable Black Cat team-up movie. But due to poor critical reception, mixed audience reception, and a middle of their own box office to Amazing Spider-Man 2, Sony instead decided to put Spider-Man in the MCU, though that has not stopped them from trying to make a shared universe with their villains, such as Venom or Kraven. X-Men Origins follow-ups. X-Men Origins Wolverine was supposed to be the first of at least 4 other X-Men Origins films, including a Magneto movie that eventually became X-Men First Class, a Cyclops movie, a Gambit movie, and a sequel to X-Men Origins Wolverine that eventually just became 2013's The Wolverine. After poor critical and audience reception, along with the movie being leaked in its entirety to torrent sites just a couple weeks prior, Fox scrapped the X-Men Origins series and took the franchise in a different direction. Tim Burton's Batman 3. What was supposed to be the third Tim Burton Batman film with Robin Williams set to play the Riddler and Marlon Wayans set to play Robin, but due to controversy about Batman Returns being too dark, Burton was fired and replaced with Joel Schumacher to give the other Batman films a more family-friendly tone. First off, shame on you, Warner Brothers. This was your fault and you know it. You knew what film you were making with Batman Returns, yet you still decided to market it to children, and then you gave Burton the blame. Due to this, Burton left Warner Brothers, though he has since apparently rekindled that business relationship, as he is currently directing them for Beetlejuice 2. So maybe with Batman 89's universe continuing as a comic, Michael Keaton having come back to play Batman in The Flash, maybe we'll finally get a third Burton Batman film that closes out the story. And most recently, Batgirl, a movie that infamously was completely finished, but then never released due to tax purposes. Maybe someone will pull a fanboy-style heist and accidentally leak this movie so we can judge for ourselves its quality. And finally, Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. The closest thing Edgar Wright has done to a comic book movie is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Marvel apparently didn't vibe with the tone of what Edgar Wright's Ant-Man was going for, so we left the project. But maybe one day Edgar Wright will be able to direct an MCU movie. I'd like to see his wacky tone in the MCU. Let me know what canceled projects that you would like to see, and I will see you next time.